So I'm sure a lot of us have noticed that today we have a lot to cover. So we'll just start so that those who join later would have to review the beginning part of the video in case they missed anything. So the first agenda for the day is a recap on databases. So all the concepts that we looked at last week, today we'll just brush through them. And then we go on with cloud adoption framework. Hi, Beatrice. Good afternoon. So we would go from the beginning to the end. So under introduction to databases, or the very first class that we had concerning databases, can anybody remind us of some of the concepts that we okay, hi, Beatrice. Some of the concepts that we came across that day. Or I should ask questions. All right, Calvin.
Okay, good afternoon, Akosia, and good afternoon, everybody.
Afternoon.
So, we looked at what database is. We said it's a collection of organized data that is stored in a way that allows for efficient retrieval and manipulation. And also, we looked at the data model, which is a conceptual representation of the structure and the organization of data in a database. We also looked at horizontal and vertical scaling, which we said the horizontal scaling involves adding more to distribute the workload, and the vertical scaling involves upgrading individual nodes to increase resources. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Calvin. So yeah, for our first database class, we looked at data. We said there are bits and pieces of information, okay? And we mentioned that a database is just where data is housed, okay? And we saw various types of databases, but then the ones that we actually had a look at the relational database and then the non-relational database. Who can help us with the difference between both? Appear David. Jennifer, why would we call one database relational and then call the other non-relational?
Um, so I think there are two types of databases, right? The relational one, I understand it, but I don't know how to explain it. So again, I've never figured out how to explain it. But then it's I think the best way I can describe it is like different tables, but they're all connected to uh one particular different columns, but they all are connected. I don't know if I'm making any sense.
Okay. Yes. So the relational database has to do with data being spread across multiple tables. And it's also very strict on the schema or the way that the data is organized inside of the database. And that way is it's being spread across multiple tables, okay? And it's also referred to as relational database. What's the another name for relational databases. A hint is the language that is used to query the database.
MySQL database.
Thank you. So relational databases are also known as SQL databases because you can use the SQL language to query, to input data, to make database transactions, okay? And that SQL follows, or SQL is a good tool to use for databases that have that strict schema. So you are trying to find what is on row 3, column 5 or something. How you configure your SQL command is what's going to get you the response that you are going to get back. Okay, so we also looked at non-relational databases, which no SQL is required, and the table structure is not that strict. So we looked at DynamoDB, and we looked at DynamoDB, and then we also how we could query or retrieve our item without us having to go through with those select statements and those things that are traditionally used in SQL. And we also looked at DBMS, which we mentioned that it's a software that provides database functionality. So the example that I kept using was that if you should have your server or your machine, for example, your laptop, and you want to host a database, the software that you will get to be able to tailor your laptop to a database server is the DBMS, okay? So database management system. And MySQL was the one that we got to do our demonstrations. So we then moved on to data interaction and database transaction. What do we understand by data interaction? You can use English to answer this one, interaction.
Akosia,
Hi,
how
Gifty.
two databases or two tables can interact with each other or connect to each other in a way. Yeah.
Okay. So we looked at the ways that we can interact with our database. The examples that we saw were the end user, so some roles or some users that might need to interact with the database. We saw developers, we saw end users like you and I, we saw database administrators. So how we are able to get our database to do something for us, okay? And for the ways that the end user would interact with a database, we saw that it could be a direct client-server interaction where the user uses an app or a software that allows them to run SQL commands behind the scenes. So you are using your WhatsApp and then you're probably typing something out, or you're probably making some calls to the database, but then the developer has made sure that behind the scenes, SQL commands are being run and you are getting your results back. So that was one way. And the other way too was through a three-tier application, which in AWS is, well, in AWS and traditionally too, the three-tier application is the ideal way to interact with your database. Who can tell us the 3 layers or the 3 tiers that we're talking about? Ruben.
Good afternoon once again.
Hi, good
The
afternoon.
3 tiers as a server, client server, the application tier, and the data tier.
All right. Thank you, Ruben. So we have the presentation tier, which is where the client directly interacts with your application. And we also have the application tier, which some process, some computation, some operations is happening there to be able to get your clients whatever they're looking for. And lastly, we have the database tier where you'll be able to retrieve any data that the clients needs retrieved for them. So a good example, I know in this class we've looked at an application or a software that records lecture notes. That was like in the first week. I had you guys give me application ideas, and I think that was Jennifer's idea. So in a setup like this, the presentation layer would be where Gifty, Albert, when they open their browser, the page that will meet. So for example, welcome to Jennifer's lecture recording app. Press here to begin or something like that. So that's the presentation layer. Then as soon as they click on the button, that begins when the recording process starts, that would be the application layer coming into play because it's providing some computation, some functionality to the application. And then probably after they've recorded whatever it is, it would definitely need to store somewhere. Okay, so it could store in the database, and it could store in the database. So a common use case for keeping data in database too could also be so your login information. So let's say you're trying to log in into Jennifer's application and you provide your credentials, so your username, your password. It would, in a setup like this, it would need to go to the database to verify that the hash of the password and stuff that you're bringing in is same as the hash of the one that they have stored. Then that's where they're able to tell that yes, you are who you say you are. So database functionalities there are a number of them. For storing data, storing application information, etc. And a database transaction is a collection of database changes that must be performed as a unit. So we spoke about ACID. Atomic is either all of the operations get performed or none of them gets performed. So that's how you know if your transaction has been successful or not. And we also mentioned that when it comes to transactions being ACID compliant, relational databases really help to make this happen. So relational databases like RDS would usually be relied on when it comes to doing transactions inside of the cloud. Okay. So we also looked at data types when it comes to databases. And can some of us just mention the data types that we remember?
Integer.
Thank you, Beatrice.
Boolean.
Boolean. Thank you, Terry.
Varchar.
Varchar. Thank you, Dennis. Pardon? Derek.
Hello, who's here?
Yes.
We got the child
Okay. Yeah.
and flow,
All right. Thank you.
and I put the data.
It will come. It will come.
We have the date also, and date time.
Okay. So we mentioned that for how the computer reads data or how it understands data or sees data is in zeros and ones. So for your database to store any information that you're given to it, it's going to be storing them in zeros and ones. And how is your database going to know that this zeros and ones I'm storing this zeros and ones I'm storing, is it like a Boolean zeros and ones, or is it decimal or float zeros and ones, or is one integer? So in that regard, you would always need to specify the type of data so that it would not it's to conserve space or to conserve memory. Okay, so that's just how your database acts. In fact, that's how they've been programmed. So whatever they are storing, they know they're storing it in a certain type of way, and it's the data type that is going to dictate that way to them. Okay, and the data type that you use to is what's going to determine the kind of functions and then the kind of operations that you can perform on whatever data that you are storing. And we also looked at primary and foreign key. Who can help us with the difference between both? Terry.
Okay, because I'm just trying to. So
Okay.
a primary key is a key that uniquely identifies a value on a table. And then a foreign key is the one that reference it's also a primary key, but it references from another table.
Okay, thank you, Terry. So we saw that in the relational database model, the values or the data is linked with it's spread across multiple tables, okay? And for you to have data spread across multiple tables, but still have them linked or have them be like the same owner of data or the same group of data, you would need to use primary keys and foreign keys. So when the application, when we come to your primary, like the table that holds your primary key, we would see a unique identifier. And with that unique identifier, when we go to other tables, would be able to tell that this row or this entry belongs to that person's entry inside of the primary key or inside of the primary table. Okay, so the use of primary and foreign keys is to establish a relationship between the multiple tables that we say are present inside of the relational database. Okay. And we also looked at inserting data into a database. Okay, so when it comes to inserting data into a database, which command did we use to do that last week? Or which clause did we use to do that?
Insert into statement.
Insert into.
All right, thank you. So that SQL statement is what we use to insert data into a database. We also imported our .csv, which had the names of some of you, your groups, your scores, surname, first name. So we also looked at how we can import a CSV. So if you have a lot of data that you need to put into your database, then you would go the CSV way. But if it's just these rows that you want to insert, then you can also use the inserts, which would usually be for like a smaller data set. Okay. Then we went on to selecting data from a database. And who remembers the clause that we use when we come to selecting data?
Select.
Select from.
All right, thank you. So select whatever you're trying to get from then the table name, okay? So it knows to go to that table and then find whatever it is that you are trying to select. And if you want to filter your select statement, you can use where to apply a filter to your select statement. We also looked at some conditional searches. We know what conditions are. Give me this information or retrieve this information because of this and that and that. So if the information I'm trying to find meets the criteria I have described, then that information will be given to me. And we can use, we can establish this conditional searching by using the where clause. Okay, so I have a database with all of you guys' names, and I want to retrieve information where the student scored, let's say above 50. Okay, so that's when everywhere that condition is met, I would be giving back information on that. I looked at arithmetic, comparison, and logical operators. Arithmetic, addition, subtraction, comparison, greater than, equal to, less than or equal to, etc. And we also looked at logical operators like in and. And we also saw aliases, where we can provide a temporary column with a heading that we specify. So inside of our outputs, or when our results are given back to us, the column would have that name or that heading, and then it will have whatever information that we were looking for that we specified. And what is the keyword when creating an alias?
As.
Thank you. We also looked at null values, which represents the absence of a value. And if you want to evaluate if a value that you have is null or not, you would use is null or is not null inside of your query. Johnny Albert.
Hello.
Hi, John.
Hello. Sure. Good afternoon to you and my friends. I want to ask a question about aliases.
Okay.
Can we use aliases for table names as well as for the columns?
Aliases are for the columns.
Not table names.
No.
Okay.
Dennis, that example we saw where you put the name, so let's say city, and then beside it you put CI. Were those tables or columns? I don't really remember.
Those are columns, please.
Those are columns. Okay.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, John.
No, I didn't get his.
Okay. Yeah, they are for columns.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, but it's possible to also give a temporary name to a table using aliases. Okay, so we then went on to look at functions, and we said that they help us to achieve something inside of our database. So we saw the insert function, we saw the date time, we saw distinct, count, we saw sum, maximum, minimum, all those functions. We looked at what they do, AVG for average. So here. And then we moved on to organizing data, where we saw the who can tell us what's some of the clauses that we use to organize data inside our database.
Akusha, we have order by and
Order by.
Okay, thank you. So order by, group by, having. So I feel like these ones are explanatory. So when you hear order by, you know that okay, you are trying to sort. Okay, when you hear group by, you know that we are trying to group, or we are trying to combine the query outputs into groups. Okay, and then we said we'll use having to do what? The having clause.
You have to
To filter.
So to filter our group by query. Okay, so after we've grouped and then we've gotten the results, we can use having to filter through those groups that we have. And under the order by, you could specify ascending or descending. Okay, and then we moved on to retrieving data from multiple tables. And we know how to retrieve data from table A, from table B, but to combine the answers, to combine the results that we are going to get back, there are some statements that we can use to combine those, for example, those two select statements, if we want to combine them. So table 1 has information on scores. Table 2 has information on group assigned. If I want to combine those two groups of data, what clause would I use?
Union.
Thank you. So we looked at union, and we mentioned that if you use just union, it would bring you those results without duplicates. But if you want the duplicates, then you're going to have to use
Union all.
Thank you. We also looked at join, how we can use join to combine the results of two tables. So we looked at the inner join, where only the values that both tables have in common would be shown to us. Left join, you would see the ones they have in common, and then you'd also see the ones that have no match on the left table, on your first table. Okay, and then right join, just that's the opposite. So you'd see the ones in common, and then you'd also see the ones on the right table or the second table that do not have matches to the first table. We then went on to look at Amazon RTS. Okay, so who can tell us what RTS is? Dennis.
Okay, so I know RDS is a relational database offered as a managed service by AWS. And so yeah, you can provision it in two ways. So either the standard way or the option where AWS gives you best practices, like they choose the most accepted and industry required one. And using the RDS, you can store your relational database and perform queries on them. And you can also choose the kind of engine you want to use, whether it's MySQL, Postgres, or any other relational database available on the service. So that's the little I remember.
All right, thank you, Dennis. So RDS is AWS's own relational database service, and it's managed because they take care of everything for you. So the RDBMS, the server provisioning, infrastructure, networking. I believe we even saw how if we want to connect our RDS to our database instance to an EC2, it would go and even create security group to allow that connection to function. So AWS manages all of these things for us, and we just specify the configurations that we want. And there are two ways. You could go with easy create where you have less configurations to do, less questions to answer, but still end up with your database. And then we also saw the standard where you have more configurations to make decisions on. Anybody remember some of the features that we saw about RDS? Some of the features that the package comes with.
Akosia, high
Yes, Gifty.
availability.
Thank you.
RDS availability. Thank you.
Okay, do you want to explain high availability to us or nominate someone to explain it?
Okay, I'll nominate hey who? Emmanuel Odum.
Emmanuel Odum, tell us about high availability in RDS.
Hello, good afternoon, Akosia.
Good
And thank you very
afternoon.
much for this. I do you, you do me. Thank you. Okay, RDS high availability means when you create an RDS in, let's say, one availability zone or AZ, AWS automatically replicates in the other AZs for you so that you tend to have more availability of it. And there are instances where, what do you call it? You can even have a read replica just to facilitate how requests to the database will be set instead of serving from the original database. So this is my understanding of high availability of the RDS.
All right. Thank you, Ima. So yeah, with RDS, when creating your instance, I think some of us noticed on with the demo that we watched, it was just a tick box if you want to activate multi-AZ deployment, okay? And when you select it, another database instance will be provisioned inside a different availability zone for you. And what's the benefits that this helps with too is that if anything should happen to your server inside the database, let's say availability zone A, you have your availability zone B ready. Okay, so they would have AWS would make that configuration that as soon as the one in A fails, the one in B should take over. And yes, and read replicas too. That is a database instance, which is a replica or a copy of the database instance that you have in availability zone A, and it does not accept writes, it only accepts reads. Okay, so use it to get the burden. So everybody accessing your database is going for your main database, okay? But when you get a read replica, you'll be able to decouple or just separate those traffics. So the read request would go to the read replica, and then the write request would go to the main database instance so that your instance is not overwhelmed. Someone tell us another feature of RDS. Apart from high availability, read replicas, there's one, or yeah, there's one more that we haven't mentioned yet.
High throughput.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's true. You will be able to get your reads and writes done faster, and if like no matter the size of reads or writes you're making, you'll be able to complete them. There's another one. It's also in relation to disaster recovery. Is Yakubu here? When Yakubu heard about it, he said we are doing too much to be secure. Like we are doing too much disaster recovery when he heard about that one.
Hello, Akos.
Hi.
Was it the automatic backup?
Yes. So
Yeah,
okay. You want to tell us
yeah, I
about?
remember.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, just a little bit. I remember we said there was the automatic backup feature on there as well as the manual. So you could decide to manually back up yourself, but by default, AWS has an automatic backup system set up for your database.
All right. Thank you, Eileen. So yeah, RDS comes with automated and redundant backups. So it would be able to back up any information that you have on your database. That way, if anything should happen to your instance, you would be able to go and spin up another database instance, still having the information that you had on the one that has gone down. Okay, so there's no data loss because these automated backups are happening, and AWS does these automated backups on your behalf. If you also need to take your own backups too, that's also an option that that is available to you. You'll be able to take snapshots. Okay, you'll be able to take snapshots of the data that you have stored in somewhere for disaster recovery purposes, for compliance, etc. Okay, and I think we also looked at the engines, the database engine. So we mentioned that the RDBMS or even RDS is hosting your database, okay, but what provides the functionality is the engine. So through the engine, you are able to input some data, export some data, delete some data, okay. So you can think of database engines like your cars, okay. So a car would is the car that is moving you from place to place, okay, but inside of the car, what is that component, or what is that tool inside the car that's like actually converts your fuel into motion? And we know that is our engine, okay. So you could use Aurora, PostgreSQL, MySQL, MariaDB, Oracle, and Microsoft SQL Server. And these engines would help you to perform whatever functionality you want on your database. And it's MySQL that we had been using the whole week last week. All right, so Aurora is AWS's own database engine. It's highly available, highly performant, and it's also cost effective. So that's it for RDS and Aurora. And then the last AWS service, or even the last topic we looked at last week was
DynamoDB.
Dynamo.
okay, thank you. And what is DynamoDB?
It's a non-relational database.
Okay. So DynamoDB is the most popular NoSQL database in AWS. So whenever you hear NoSQL, think DynamoDB, okay? And DynamoDB uses key value pairs to store the data. And before we even looked at DynamoDB, we compared relational and non-relational databases, and then we saw how DynamoDB could be preferred over RDS because horizontal scaling in DynamoDB is better, or is more possible there, and it's easier. We also saw that RDS is fast, but DynamoDB is faster. So if I am trying to input some data and I have to, like, the engine or the thing that is going to input that data for me, he has to go with a map and then go to this table, input the data, and then find the foreign key or the key that relates to that table in another table to input that data And we compared it to if all the data was together and then we just like input them at once. We saw that, yes, the one that treats your whole data as one, as an item, which is DynamoDB, would be faster. Another reason I mentioned too was about DynamoDB storing the data in memory. So Paul helped us understand the last time that whenever you want to run a program, the instructions of that program are retrieved from your HDD, your SSD, so your storage, your hard disk. The instructions for the program are retrieved from there by the CPU. So the CPU is the brain of the computer. And then the CPU carries out these instructions. And so what DynamoDB does is that it stores the data on the RAM, so like the memory of the setup or of the database. So the information is coming from the RAM, and getting information from the RAM is highly performant as compared to the hard disk. So you would be able to get your data or perform any actions faster when you are working with information that's coming from memory, from RAM, okay, as compared to information that's coming from the hard disk or the SSD. So inside RDS, we provisioned an EBS, which I mentioned can be likened to your hard disk, but inside of DynamoDB, the data is being stored in memory, okay, in memory. So that helps it to have a faster retrieval time, faster writing time, because when the information is needed, it's already there, okay. And DynamoDB has no table size or throughput limit. Your tables can be as the data inside DynamoDB grows, okay? So you can put as much data as you want, but per individual item inside DynamoDB, what is the limit?
I think it's 400 kilobytes.
400 kilobytes.
All right, thank you. So yeah, you have a 400 kilobytes maximum item limit, but you could have an endless or limitless amount of data inside of DynamoDB. We also looked at global tables, and we said there was a feature for being able to replicate the data inside your DynamoDB table. You want to replicate it in between regions, okay? So a use case for that will be you are aware of the region that your users are going to be coming from, okay? So you try as much as possible to put the data closer to them so that it reduces the latency it takes for them to be able to access that data. So I think that's it for the summary on databases. Please give me 3 minutes. I will be right back.
Okay.
Hello guys. When is the deadline for the database cases?
You also got the email, I guess.
Yes, so
I
I
think
got it.
I think Wednesday. Wednesday.
It's supposed to be.
It's
Wednesday.
tomorrow.
Is it not next week?
Yes,
No,
next
Wednesday.
week.
Yeah, it should be next week.
This
How?
Wednesday.
No.
No,
How?
not the
Anytime.
code signal.
Okali, one at a time. One
Yeah,
at a time.
Ellie, please go ahead.
Not the code signal.
Hey, Manola Uku.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be delivered next week. The deliverables for the database it should be next week.
Yes.
That's the cases.
Next week, Tuesday. Cases and
I'm not
labs.
talking about a code signal. I'm talking about the
Yes.
cases.
Yes, cases and labs for
So
database.
why that email? It really scared me.
Serious,
Yeah.
I was like, my heart was.
Yeah, Mildred, you know, they actually told me I have a pending KC, that's Dynamo DB KC, and they actually listed it that I should go and do.
Yeah, I
As
had like
completed.
five queries on that. So
I
So
think they've added it all
because tomorrow is the deadline for I think Python. So ideally, the following week Tuesday it should be for that database. But no, I don't know. For your class, no, it looks like we are a bit late. The other classes they are done with the database cases.
Hey.
No,
no,
it's, it's
Yeah.
because we requested for that extension and it was granted. But it looks like the system is still using the old, deadline.
Please, that mail was sent from AWS and not from Amalitech. So
it's Amalitech. If you check the
AWS.
Yeah,
subscription,
they said training team.
yeah, it's Amalitech.
So guys, please, I beg, which mail are you guys talking about? Me, I didn't get any mail.
Then maybe you've done all your labs.
Maybe you have done all your cases.
All your cases
Good
are
job.
Me too. No, I haven't gotten any email.
Ruben, you've done all your cases in database, right?
Yes.
And I added that they have refreshed
Uh,
they've added the data for week 5. So if you check your dashboard and you have 55 cases, then that means that you are done. So you will not receive the mail. Yes.
And then let me go and check it.
Ayaka.
Type in account.
That's Ayaka.
Type in kakra be my Friday and you place here. And then you watch maybe cases no more.
Guys, still the average assessment, week 4 has still not been updated.
Week 4, I think it's shown upgraded.
No, it's still not updated. Mine is still not updated though. And they've
then
added week 5.
then maybe it's an issue. So you should contact maybe Akushia. For mine, it's already updated.
Average assessment.
Yes.
For week 4?
Yeah, week 4.
We are now in week 5.
Mine has not been updated yet. It's still 0.
Yeah, they've added week 5. Week 5 is still not updated.
Well,
It's
maybe.
not updated for they've not updated week 5. Then Ruben, I think maybe yours they've done it, but it's not for everyone.
Well, I'll cross check maybe.
All right.
I'm back. Please, do we have any questions about databases before we move on to what we have to do for today? Okay.
Kosia.
Yes, Gipsy.
I have a picture of the KC I did. One KC I did in database. I don't know. I didn't quite understand the command, but after a while, I realized that they were just adding up certain things to make the command long, because after trimming or removing some of the this ones, the clauses, or some of the commands, I still ended up at the same answer.
Oh, okay.
I'm dropping it now in the chat, okay?
Okay. Hi, Dennis.
Please, are we allowed to ask questions about cases, labs, and dashboard right now or after the class?
Yeah, let's do it after the class.
Okay.
Okay. Gifty, why did you is in the chat? Okay. Okay, and so what was the question?
Hello, Akusia.
Hi,
I've sent
Christine.
the question. I've sent the question to.
Which one? 14, 15, 16?
Yes, so number 15, the
Okay.
one that is highlighted, yes.
Okay, so they selected the individual roles, they grouped by, and then they also summed. Oh, okay. And you had a shorter or more straightforward way of doing it, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so there are various ways to I don't want to say kill a cat, but but it would arrive you at the same answer. I think we saw a typical example when we were running the queries. I think one of them they used where, the other one they used some other clause, but then it still arrives them at the same answer. So let's bear in mind that my SQL is a programming language, okay? So probably it's like Python, okay? So inside of Python, if you're trying to get some function done, the way you go about it is not the same way everybody go about it. Bash too is the same way. Okay.
Okay.
So as long as you can write the right query to be able to get you the right answer, then that's all that matters.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. So we have heard about the cloud, okay? We've heard about how right now everything is, or a lot of applications and then hosting and stuff is going on inside of the cloud. There have been companies that have taken the lead. So when you look back at AWS, cloud computing didn't start today. So there are companies that have already taken advantage of the cloud. And there are some companies too that are quite late to the party. So as a cloud engineer, if you get a role, okay, and then the company is hiring you because they are moving to the cloud, or you have been tasked to do some consultation. You know how since you know cloud stuff, they would want to consult with you about their move to the cloud, okay? How are you going to guide them around it? What are the necessary aspects? What are the necessary things that have to be in place for the company to be able to get a successful move to the cloud? Okay, they could be aiming for hybrid, they could be aiming for fully cloud, anything. But if a company wants to adopt the AWS cloud into their operations, into their business, this is a framework that has been provided by AWS, and it serves as a guide for companies to be able to have a smooth migration to the cloud. So it's called AWS CAF, Cloud Adoption Framework. It provides guidance and best practices to help organizations build a comprehensive approach to cloud computing across their organization. It helps you to get a faster and successful cloud adoption. And the cloud adoption framework is organized into perspectives, and each of the perspectives consists of capabilities. So these are the 6 perspectives that the cloud adoption framework is organized into. We have business, people, governance, platform, security, and operations. And for a successful move to the cloud, or even operations inside of the cloud, all these 6 aspects of your business or of your organization need to align. So as we go along, we are going to see why this has to be, because if you're able to provision the platform and then your database administrator says he doesn't want to learn RDS, then how are you going to be able to perform some functions inside your database? Do you get it? So all of it have to align. So it would entail the plan. So by the end, or if you go through all of these 6 perspectives, you would have a plan that would serve as your guide when you want to transition into the cloud. So the core perspectives, we have the business capabilities, which has to do with business, people, and governance. And we have the technical capabilities, which is comprising of platform, security, and operations. So with a business perspective, so for these for this part, you'd have to, so we'll just give you examples of people inside the company who need to align when it comes to things like this. So for example, when it comes to business, you are going to need help of the IT finance person, IT strategy person, business realization, business risk assessment, because what you are trying to do is to ensure that, okay, we are traditional now, but if we move to the cloud, what business value are we going to get? Are we still going to be able to keep, so it's about money and then income stuff, okay? So are we going to be able to get a return on our investment? And when we move to the cloud, the money that we have, so let's say your company makes $1 million yearly. So when moving to the cloud, that money, is our profit going to still be at 1 million? Is it going to be more? Is it going to be less? So the business people, business analysts, they would look into these and then look at the business side. So what is it that your business needs that is making you want to move to AWS, and is AWS going to be able to help us meet our business needs while we are there? So that is what the business perspective is about. So just making sure that your business strategies and goals align with the IC strategies and goals. Then we move on to the people perspective, resource management, incentive management, career management, training, organizational change management. So the people that you have in your organization now, would they be able to work as efficiently as they do if we should move to the cloud? If they would not, then now is the time for us to draw a training plan for them, okay? So it's just getting human resource, their staff, to be on board with the move. So you are going to evaluate each person's role, what they do. Would they need any new skills for them to continue to do what they do inside the cloud? So for example, your finance guy, okay, when he is when we are operating traditionally, he might only probably be working with invoices, so like paper invoices, receipts for service, those things. But when we move to the cloud, your finance guy would now need to have an insight into your cost and billing management on the cloud, because now he's going to be tracking them from there. Probably there's a person who monitors, there's a person in your company who, so your database administrator, okay, so when he is on premise, he uses MySQL, and we know for a fact that inside of RDS, he will be able to just continue to use his MySQL just how he does on-prem, just like a little tips and tricks about RDS. That's it, he's good to go. So the people perspective has got to do with your staff, okay, how they would be able to still work when we make the move to the cloud. And if there are any gaps in how they would work, Now is the time to draw a plan to address it. So I've seen companies pay for training for their staff because they always want to have someone in-house. So some companies might outsource it. They would go to a consultancy to help them make the move. But even then, the consultancy would suggest that you have somebody in-house who still knows a lot of the things about the cloud that you are moving to. So as part of that consultancy package, they would also train your workers for you. And the governance perspective, that has got to do with your organizational process, the bureaucracy, so the people that decisions have to go through before any decision is arrived. Okay, those governing the institutions, the various project managers, chief information officers, those people. So you need to align the skills and processes. So the skills and processes inside this IT strategy has to align with the governance goals of the organization. Yeah, so you can use CAF to focus and align with the strategy and goals of the business, thereby maximizing business value. Now, platform, that would be about the solutions architects, IT manager, the chief technology officer. So the way you are running things now, when you move them to the cloud, how are you then going to run it? So inside, traditionally, you run a server inside of the cloud. Which service would you use for that?
EC2.
Thank you. For your network provisioning, you have all these cables and wiring, everything done inside of your traditional environments. When you move to the cloud, which service would help you with your networking?
VPC.
Thank you.
VPC.
Thank you. So you store your data on one of the servers, or probably you have a tape that you use to be collecting backups. Inside of AWS, which service would you use?
S3.
Okay. S3, EBS, what's the other one? EFS. Okay.
Yes.
So these storage options are there. Your database, your you could use RDS, you could use DynamoDB. So you need to be able to understand the IT systems, their relationships on-prem, and you need to be sure that when you move to the cloud, you would still be able to have those relationships. Your business would still be able to run your processes or your platform, your infrastructure, just as safe or even better than how they were running it on the running this traditionally. Okay, so for the platform perspective, the tech people come to play here. So your solutions architect, your IT manager, this is where they come to do. So these are the people that matter when it comes to this perspective. So they would also have to go and make a case that's okay. So we do this traditionally, but on AWS, we can do it like this and like this, like this, without having any problems. So CTO, Chief Technology Officer, Manager, Solutions Architects, they would be able to help when it comes to this perspective of your move or your adoption of the cloud. Then the security perspective. So this one, I don't even have to ask, the answer is in the question. So how, when you were on-prem, you were able to manage security? So when you were on-prem, probably you had access controls. Okay, so for anybody to get to your server room, they will need to probably show their their key fob or their ID card thumbprint before they get access to the server room. Inside of AWS, if anybody is going to access your instance, they should have those permissions. So you, inside of AWS, you're going to use IAM for something like that. Traditionally, your security, you were using so your servers are only exposed to your what's it called? Your organization's network. Right now, inside of AWS, you can go to security group, then you put the IP range of your organization's network inside of the security group to ensure that, yes, that is the only place that traffic should be expected from. So the IT security manager, security analysts, even risk managers, they also come into play here because you need the assurance that moving from traditional to AWS is not going to leave your company exposed when it comes to security. Okay, so your infrastructure security, your data protection, incident response. So so when it comes to incident response, probably when something should happen when you're traditionally, you'd have to be informed, you go and check it out. But inside of AWS, you can get services that would be monitoring your infrastructure for you. So who can mention the service I'm thinking about? That will alert you.
CloudWatch.
Thank you.
CloudTrail.
CloudTrail is also one of them. CloudWatch.
You don't want to say alarm.
Yeah, so CloudWatch alarms.
And
So,
the SNS.
and SNS. So when CloudWatch looks and something is happening or something is going wrong, CloudWatch would alert you with the two CloudWatch alarms or with the simple notification service, SNS. So you need to understand how you can use AWS to still maintain that top-notch security that you had inside of your traditional environment. Because what's the point in making that move when it's going to compromise your security? So IT security analysts, security managers, information security officer, you should be able to explain to these people inside the company that yes, you are making a move, but this and this and this is what AWS offers that would help you to still be able to use your to use the AWS service, okay? And then one thing about these people about AWS is that they, as much as possible, try to provide a lot of documentation and they label their services or their features in a way that if you're an IT guy and you're looking at an IT feature from AWS, you kind of understand what it seeks to do, okay? All the technical terms and everything, this people would be able to understand and say, oh yes, that is the right move. That's like is a good idea for us to adopt the cloud. Now, operations. How you run your day-to-day, the processes or the operations that are helping you to run your business. When you guys make the move, would you still be able to do those things as seemingly and as freely as you do? So service monitoring, application performance monitoring, resource, sorry. Resource inventory management, some disaster recovery mechanisms, incident response, all of those things. So the way you operate in your company or in your organization as normal, how can you harness the cloud so that you can just continue just as if you were operating traditionally? So moving to the cloud is not going to cause any problems for you, okay? So your day-to-day, so for example, traditionally, whenever you come to work each morning, you'd have to go and take a record of the logs. So let's say you've configured for the logs on your Linux system or your Linux server to be saving in one directory. So you might just pick it up and just look through it for any suspicious activity or something of that sort. In AWS, you're going to be able to automate that, there's also an option where you can query your logs. So CloudTrail has options to visualize your logs, to query your logs. So you know that, yes, moving to AWS, I would still be able to do those things, and even better than traditionally. So that's it's on the operations perspective. Traditionally, you might be keeping a record, maybe a book or maybe an Excel sheet, that you have this server, and then the server is labeled server 00122 something. Inside of AWS, you can simply use the what's it called, instance name or even instance ID to individually know those servers. So you know, okay, at this time I have 6 servers, I have this. So the inventory, the resources that you are provisioning and managing, is it easier to track them? Is it easier to have your inventory system happen as compared to how it's run traditionally? So the cloud adoption framework helps the stakeholders to define the current procedures. So you define everything that you do on your day-to-day when it comes to operations, and then you'll be able to identify how you'll be able to continue doing those things in the cloud. So if there's any gap, probably you need to train the infrastructure provisioning guy to get some additional skills, then this is the time to implement that. Okay, so what is the Ellie?
Yes, please, I have a quick question.
Okay.
I may draw us back a little bit, but it's regarding the sorry.
Regarding the
SSH into your instance.
Okay.
So assuming you are working at an enterprise level, I remember that when we're setting the permissions, usually we set it to allow SSH from anywhere. But let's say you are dealing with a large number of IPs that are connected to that instance. Would you have to now specify which ones will be allowed into it as part of like your security protocol, or you just keep it at connect from anywhere? Like allow all IPs connect.
The multiple IPs you are talking about, are they all is there a way to group them? Can you get them in a range?
Yes. Okay.
So if you can get them in a range, then you use CIDR blocking. So CIDR blocking, you mention your IPs, let's say 45 dot. Okay, I'm just use this. So guys, if I want to do CIDR blocking for this, what do I do next? The suffix.
/.
Thank you. And then the number of bits that you want to block. So probably in your company, your network address or your network has a range, okay? And that range is that the 4.56, it stays, okay? That's blocked. And then your resources inside your company, your servers, your computers and stuff, they will all be using different combinations of these last 2 slots, okay? So in that case, what number should I put behind the slash?
16.
Thank you, 16. So if any IP address is trying to access or SSH into your server, they will first check that it's starting with 4.56. If it's not, automatic deny.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's how you'll be able to make sure your SSH is coming from only your network, your company's network. But if it's different places, get them in a range, okay? So that you'll be able to do this, it will be easier.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so what is the cloud adoption framework in your own words? How do you understand the cloud adoption framework? I think I'll call someone whose voice I haven't heard today. Richmond Amoa.
this.
Is someone speaking? I can't really hear. Albert.
Hello.
Please, I'm outside, so can you please carry me? Like,
Yes, Akusha, hello.
Hi, John.
Okay.
Albert, I didn't hear what you said, though.
Okay.
I said I'm outside. I'm on route to do something.
Okay.
Akusha, please, can you come again with your question?
What is the cloud adoption framework? In your own words, let me know what it means to you.
Hello, Akusha.
Hi, John.
Okay, so I was trying to speak. I think I was having a network problem.
Oh, okay.
So my understanding about the cloud adoption framework, in my own words, are the pillars that the person who is trying to either advise top management or is leading the adoption of cloud computing would have to consider and make sure that he had encompassed all those pillars: the business, the people, technology, the impact on their operation currently before they actually make a switch. And so it is a framework to enable the person as, let's say, a consultant or someone with a cloud knowledge helping the company to make a shift. And so that would be what my understanding is about the cloud adoption framework.
All right. Thank you, John. Ruben.
Hello, Madam Akosia. Well, from my own understanding, I will just describe the two letters or two words. That is cloud. What's the next?
Adoption.
Adoption and framework. So, what is cloud? From the initial stage, you got to understand that it's an on-demand service over the internet. So now every organization is trying to move over the internet to market their products. So it is over the internet services. So what about adoption? So the meaning of adoption means to transform, transformation. So how do you transform your business over the internet? And the last one is the framework, this structure by which you should use or you should apply in order to transform your business over the internet. So to combine all of them, I think it is the way or means of transforming your business services from the traditional way to over the internet. So that is my understanding. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ruben. There goes answer.
Okay, Akosia, I would say the cloud adoption framework will be like a guide, something that will guide an organization if probably they want to move their on-premises services into the cloud.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Derek. So yeah, adoption. I know when we hear adoption, what comes to our mind is adopting a child or something. So you could think of it like that. Okay, when you want to adopt a child, what are the things that you need to make sure or the factors that you need to put in place so that this adoption that you are doing will not be like an issue for you, and you'll be able to use it to meet whatever goal it is that you sort out to have achieved, whatever goal it is that your business needs. You'll be able to adopt the cloud to be able to roll out those things. Okay. And it's important because for you to successfully migrate to the cloud, the people, the process, and the technology must all be aligned. Okay. So inside of CAF, you would specify how the situation is traditionally, and you'd also talk about how it could look like in the cloud, and then you draw a plan to address all those gaps, all those things that you need to do to make that shift from traditional to cloud. Okay. And the cloud adoption framework shows us the necessary aspects, the necessary departments that need to be on board when it comes to adopting the cloud. So it's all about making a good business case for why you should move from traditional to the cloud. You draw a plan, and then that's it. Okay. So the core perspectives on business, that's business, people, and governance. Then when we come to technical, we have platform, security, and operations. Okay. Are there any questions about the cloud adoption framework? Okay, so we can start with the well. Hi, Ruben.
Yes, my question is, now we know this adoption framework is from Amazon or AWS. So does it mean this framework is applied to organization like Azure or Microsoft? They also opt
Yeah,
cloud.
I'm sure they also have this. Joshua here. He's not. But I'm sure the way AWS has, they would also have this. That's you used to assess if it's worth the move or not. I'm sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So even if they don't, I think some of the principles from AWS can also be applied there because cloud is cloud.
Yes. I just want to know if they all follow the same adoption, like the same keys, because it could be that they also have another, or maybe in addition to AWS one. So if this is the general, or it's a general thing they all cope with.
No, this is AWS's one. I'm sure they also have this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Dennis.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask that with this framework or with even cloud in general, are there any is cloud suitable for all business use cases, or there are some businesses that still do not have maybe their use cases available on the cloud?
So it would depend on the kind of business you are running. Yes, it would really depend on the kind of business you are running if you would be able to use this framework to migrate to the cloud or not. But if your business is running with servers, databases, like we've seen so far, then the chances are that it would apply to you. Have I answered your question?
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, the well-architected framework. Why is this thing below? Just reload it. Okay. Okay, so we are looking at cloud architecting. When you are provisioning resources, you are designing your environment, the factors that you need to put in place for you to be able to architect, okay, for you to be able to design an environment that is not going to cost you unnecessary costs. It's not going to leave you vulnerable to attackers, etc. So that's what we mean when we speak about the well-architected framework. Okay. Okay. So the features of the well-architected framework, it describes the key concepts, design principles, and architectural best practices for designing and running workloads in the cloud. We know what best practices are. So AWS, as I mentioned, AWS didn't start today, okay? So all those years of AWS working or being in business, the solutions architects that have been designing from then and now, they have provided some insights, okay? So for compliance reasons, they won't be able to provide like exact details, but they would be able to point you in the direction that, okay, when you do it this way and then you do it that way, it's going to, you're going to maximize the use of your resource, okay? So all the great solutions architects contributing to the documentation of the best practices, and also by using artificial intelligence to also monitor setups or environments that have been, let me say, successful. So that's where the architectural best practices come from. And the well-architected framework, you should know the well-architected framework because it's going to guide you in the various domains while you operate inside the cloud. And so it's used to increase the awareness of architectural best practices. It's also used to address foundational areas that are often neglected. And you also use it to evaluate architectures by using a consistent set of principles. Yeah, so we've already seen a similar tool that's, or should I say similar to, yes, because it can help you assess your environment and be able to tell if what you are doing aligns with cloud best practices or not. So the well-architected framework provides a set of questions that AWS experts have developed to help customers think critically about their architecture. So with everything that you are doing, there should be questions that are behind your mind. Okay, is this secure enough? Is this highly available enough? Is this operationally efficient, etc. Okay. So day in, day out, cloud technologies keep evolving. So AWS too also always tries to keep improving upon the well-architected framework. And then they have a tool or a service inside AWS, and it's called the well-architected tool. Yeah. So this well-architected tool, guys, something's happening to my slides. Let me architected principles. I'm coming.
You may have to close and open it again.
Okay. 1 second, I'll be with you guys soon. Okay, I hope this one stays. Okay, we're looking at the well-architected tool, and it's one of the services that AWS provides when it comes to the well-architected framework, and it's a free service, so you can use it to help you with those questions. So the questions that you always need to keep in mind whenever you are provisioning resources in the cloud. Okay. So well architected tool. So it helps you to review your workloads against the current AWS best practices, and it also provides guidance on how to improve your cloud architectures. And this service was built based on the well-architected framework. So it provides you those questions, provides hands-on labs, well-architected to, and the AWS well-architected partner program. So the whole AWS well-architected framework, these are the features of it. And then this is the well-architected tool, just one service, and hands-on labs, the AWS well-architected partner program. So let's say the workload that you run in the cloud is for an e-commerce application. The partner program is like maybe LinkedIn or some kind of social media where you would be able to communicate with people also in the e-commerce business. Okay, so you would be able to find solutions architects and other roles, but then they work in. So it's best to always find people in your field, okay, similar to your field. That way you'd be able to share ideas. And if it's not against any company policies, you can be able to have them evaluate your system. Okay, that's all. This is how it's running, and then they'll be able to give you some tips and things like that. So that's what the well-architected partner program 2 does. And it is against the rules, so they won't be able to give you implementation details. So I don't know if any of us noticed when we were deleting Ruben's resources, somebody mentioned that what's it called? Someone asked if AWS would be able to delete those resources from their site, and that is not done because it is against the compliance rules for them to even know what's like know so much details about your implementation. So the most they can see is probably you have a NAT, you have a this, you have a that, but they can't know the deeper details of it, okay? And they can't also know the architectural patterns of it. So you would have to, that's why I mentioned that if you're comfortable, you could have somebody from the AWS partner program look at your architecture and then give you those details. When we're looking at security, we mentioned how they could sniff around and explore the way your resources have been provisioned, and they can use that to harm you. So you just always be careful about giving implementation details about your architecture, because you might go looking for help and then you would find yourself in more trouble. Okay. Yeah, so there are hundreds of members in that partner program, and you can engage any partner to help you and analyze and review your applications depending on your company's rules. Okay. So the pillars of the well-architected framework have operational excellence, security, reliability, performance efficiency, cost optimization, and sustainability. Sorry. So for each principle or domain, so for each pillar, we are going to be looking at the design principles and the best practices. Okay, so which group got operational excellence?
Group 3.
Okay, so please tell us about operational excellence.
Hello, Akosia.
Hi, John.
Okay, so I am going to give an overview of operational excellence. And then my other colleagues in my
They would help us with the rest. Okay, go ahead.
will also pick where we decided to go about it. Okay, so what I will want to say for a start is that operational excellence is one of the pillars of the well-architected framework. And if you look at companies, businesses all over the world, every company has an operation. Every company performs some kind of operation. Some might be manufacturing, others may
Oh, John, the network is really bad.
Service industry kind of operation. And these operations value. Hello.
Yes,
Hello.
John. Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
There's still a little. Okay, you go on.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello. You can hear me now.
But there's still a little noise behind.
Okay. Hello.
Hello.
I'm just standing out where. Is it? Hello.
Yeah, I think it's better now.
It's better now. Okay.
Okay, you go ahead. Don't worry.
Okay. So what I was saying is that every business runs an operation. Whatever the business is, there is an operation that go on. The operations are meant to deliver business value, and the operations should be use continuous improvement. Hello, I hope.
Yes,
I
please.
hope I can be heard. Okay, sorry. And the operations would have to deliver continuous improvement, and that is how the business will continue to be in existence. And so AWS or any company that is adopting the cloud framework implies that that business is going to run some operation. But to make their adoption of the cloud framework successful, they would have to look at their operations. And AWS have come up with these pillars to ensure that their adoption is smooth and it is meeting the business requirements. So we have operational excellence. Your operations must become excellent. And in order to do that, you would have to look at all manner of things like the tech environment. You have to look at what value are you delivering? What are the pieces that comes in? Because security will come in, and all others, but they all come under operations because that is what the business stands for. It's operations. To deliver business value, your operations must be excellent. Otherwise, your business will die. Okay, and so that is what we are going to talk about. We are going to look at the various things that we need to do to make our operations successful. And that is what my other colleagues are also going to. From this overview, we are going to look at our operations, all the various pieces that will come in. And I would therefore like to pause here and then invite my other colleagues to come in and give us elaborations on the various topics that they have picked. We have various topics under operations. We perform operations as code, and others will talk about all of them. We have to anticipate failures. Others will talk about them. And then if there is something else that I need to talk about, I will come in again. Thank you very, very much. My colleagues, please, the next person can take up the mantle and then continues with the next thing that we need to talk about. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, John. So today I mentioned Jennifer's app. Okay, so we the users of Jennifer's app, when we go, it will bring us to her web server, so her landing page. When we get there, we would see the page for us. Okay, but the operations, the steps, the processes that went on behind the scenes for Jennifer to be able to serve us that page, all infrastructure provisioning, monitoring, all those things that are making it possible for us to get any value from Jennifer's app. Those things are her operations. Okay, those things are happening behind the scenes. And as John mentioned, every company has operations that they perform to be able to meet their business goals. So perform operations as code. Please unmute and go ahead.
That would be David Appiah, please.
Okay. David, are you here? Okay. Was it last week when we were talking about AWS billing some people, and I was mentioning that whenever you finish doing anything in the console, you can destroy it, because when you come back, you can always provision a new one, and I gave a second option that you can also use to provision faster. Who remembers?
You can use the command, the CLI.
Okay, the CLI too helps. Which one again? Infrastructure as code. There's one service.
Yeah, infrastructure as code, cloud formation.
Thank you, Ima. So I see. So with infrastructure as code, instead of you going to the instance to go and click, AWS has, so the CLI is one way, and AWS also has a service called CloudFormation. So when you go into CloudFormation, you would want to run your scripts. Okay, so the scripts that you run is going to provision all those resources for you. So a typical example would be that VPC assignments that you guys had to do. Even though you use VPC more to make it faster, CloudFormation would have been able to get all those things done in like even less than a minute, because those things we were provisioning were quite you didn't have a lot to provision and they were quite basic. So yeah, you write the code like this. So to provision your VPC, there are some required values, and there are some values too that you can leave blank, because when you leave them blank, AWS would use the defaults. AWS would use the defaults for you. So we know programming, okay? We know our bash scripting, our what's it called? The other one we did recently, Python. So we know our bash scripting, we know our Python, and this also is the same idea. We are giving CloudFormation instructions to go and provision some resources for us. So here you can see that a VPC was provisioned, internet gateway, public route table. So inside your code, you specify how they should relate to each other. Okay. And when you just run it within a minute, okay, you go to the console and you can be able to see that truly CloudFormation has provisioned these things the way you wanted it to. Okay. So if infrastructure provisioning is something that you do sometimes, okay, not well, infrastructure provisioning won't be every day, but other processes, even infrastructure provisioning, just have the code there so that whenever you need to, you just go and do it. So those big companies that do sandbox environments, like a testing environment. So in that case, they would also need to use code because you can't now come and take so much time to provision resources. When you're done, you destroy them another day, you come and do all these points and click again. So it's just good to have the code. And when you run this, it would provision everything that you've specified for it to provision. So that's what we mean by performing operations as code. So it reduces the human error. Okay, so you have to provision a lot of instances, and maybe when you were configuring, a few steps escaped you or whatever. But when it's code, it's more consistent, it's more accurate because you just run the same code and it will be able to get you those resources that you need, okay? And we will choose CloudFormation match data, but that's what it means to provision operations, to perform operations as code. We have, yeah, so right now it's the point and click that we know about, but by the end of this 3 months, you would know about CloudFormation too, and you realize that it really is the best way to go. Interesting fact is CloudFormation is actually what powers your lab sessions. So when you just start the lab, the script just runs and then you get everything that those who wrote that program intended for you to get for that lab. Okay, so who's doing make frequent small reversible changes?
I am.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so I'll talk about making frequent small reversible changes. So just like the name itself speaks more about it, it's more like breaking stuff into smaller pieces so you can handle them. We do this, give me a second. We do this just so we can have frequent improvements of stuff. Let's say you have a problem somewhere, and because you divided it into smaller bits, you are able to access where the fault actually came from and really fix it quickly, then get back to operations so that everything can run smoothly. You can also reverse it back. Let's say there's an issue or there's a compatibility error or something. You just have to just reverse that small portion that you actually made. Then you just reverse it back to it and just get back to operation. So it actually makes workflow very easy and it's consistent because as you make small and frequent changes, development is actually going in place. So that is what it is about.
All right, thank you, Ima. I think we can draw this back to what's it called? Okay, I think that's a different example. So yeah, make frequent small reversible changes so it's easier to roll back. Okay, so it's easier to go back. So for example, you are making a change that is going to affect your users. Okay, probably an update or something that's going to affect the users. You just send a small part of it. There's a name There's a name that they use for it, especially when they're pushing code updates. So you just send a little part of it. If that doesn't cause any problems, then send another little part. That way, if anything should go wrong, you'll be able to know where exactly is stemming from, because I sent update 1, 2, 3, nothing happened. Now I've sent update 4, and then things are falling apart. So we know that is update 4 that's released what roll back. Okay, so refine operations procedures frequently. Group C.
Hello.
Hi, John.
Okay. Sure. Actually, it is I think Hasanatu.
Ahiabu.
No,
It's
that
Ahiabu.
is Ahiabu before Asanatu.
Okay. So Ahiabu is around.
And my
Hello,
network was a bit.
Ahiabu.
Yeah, I'm here. My network was a bit garbled, so I was trying to reconnect. Please, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. So the refine operations procedures frequently. So basically, we just have to continuously update and optimize the operational procedures that involves with the cloud architecture. So this involves trying to make some certain changes to the steps that's involved in the procedures to ensure that they are up to date with probably the current technology and best practices in place. So as we are involving and the new technologies are coming, it's only good that we try and probably make certain changes and update softwares, introduce new ideas into our workflows. And I believe this kind of things will improve the operations procedures very well, and also try to increase efficiency. So I think that's what I got from my research.
All right, thank you, Ahiabu. So
Well,
today, this operation or this process works for you, but it doesn't mean it's going to you need to stay by it forever. Okay, tech is evolving, AWS is including more features and services, so research will be able to know how they can help with your operations, and then refine your operations, so improve upon your operations. Okay, so maybe before it will take you a longer time to get some infrastructure provisioned, but right now you can get it done in like less time because you know, or you've researched on ways to make those processes better. All right, thank you, Ahiabu. Anticipate failure.
Okay. Hello, Akosia.
Hi.
Okay, so I will speak on anticipate failure.
Okay.
Actually, it is Hasanatu who would have to take it, but she's not in a very good form at the moment.
Okay, go
even
ahead.
though it's here, so I'll take it for her as it were. Okay, so when we talk of operation, and we are talking of operational excellence, every provision may break or fail at a point in time. You may have a very great adoption and all of that, but at a point in time, you would have a problem. And therefore, for operational excellence, you would have to anticipate what can go wrong, what may happen, and then your system will go offline. And so once you anticipate it, then you can start to do pre-mortem. In many cases, we do post-mortem when the event had already occurred. But if you start doing pre-mortem where you are anticipating what can go wrong, then you will prepare for it, how to mitigate it, and then you and your team will see, in case any of such things happen, how quickly can you come back online?
Okay.
Prepared for such a thing occurring, such a failure occurring? What are the things that needed? And in my personal experience, we have done some of these things before, even when in the traditional settings, we wanted to switch to a disaster recovery site in case anything happened.
Excellent. Thank you, John. So somebody would ask that if you don't know how the thief operates, how are you going to
have a team and
okay,
then
so speaking.
we will intentionally assume that the main data center has gone down. Okay, sorry.
John,
Yes,
sorry,
no,
I
so
thought
I was
you
saying that
finished. You
we
went
have
off.
actually switched from the main data center to a disaster to be sure that everything will work well.
Okay. Okay. So with anticipating failure, thank you, John. It's looking at the potential sources of failure. So those things that could go wrong and how would you mitigate them? Okay. An example we've looked at recently is your database instance. You understand that anything can happen. Okay. A component could fail. Sometimes even with our what's it called? Our laptops, you've not really done anything to it. Okay, you're just using the normal, but a component fails. Okay, and now you have to take it for repairs. Those things. So you just can just anticipate the failure and then document that if this should happen, then what would I do? Okay, so when you have that plan in place, you can what's the word? Incorporate it into the way you operate. And you should also be testing your response procedures, okay? So that whenever something like that should happen, your teams are familiar and then they know the way to go on about it. So I think Gifty has spoken to us about simulations before. That is a way to make sure that your team is ready whenever disaster should strike and learn from all operational failures. I think this is a bit related to refining operational because when you so you learn from the good things and then you also learn from the bad things. So because this and this and this went in place, it failed. So you document it and make sure that it never happens again. Okay.
Yeah, so is that all?
Yes, that's all. Unless you have a direct
Let me
use
just
case
add that.
about your service.
Okay, not for a service, but maybe I just wanted to give an example. And then also I discovered the best practice under operational excellence. So I wanted to add that also.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So basically the use case I wanted to give, not to remind anyone of their pain, I was just relating it to an organization. So for instance, in our past days, we realized that some people incur some costs unintended in their environment while they were
Hey, Dennis. Shots
fired.
myself. As I could see any moment. Oh man. Move on.
Well, I'm sorry, this one is not straight bullet. It's just for learning
Yeah,
purposes.
I understand.
Okay, so as an organization, something like that may happen. I think in a professional skill session, you shared a scenario where an intern got into an organization and deleted some things, and like there was mayhem. So learn from all operational failures. We are saying that in all the operations, the activities under it, in case failures happen, you don't wrap up your or fold your arms as an organization and say that, oh, because this has happened, we are shutting down. I mean, that shouldn't just be the conclusion. If there you can learn from it, you can use what you have learned, what happened, how can we mitigate it? What are the necessary processes we need to put in place to prevent this from happening in the future? As an organization, you need to take that step. And then maybe if still you cannot recover, then probably you can fold your arms and declare bankruptcy whatsoever. Yeah, and then also on the best practices under operational excellence, I saw four, and the first one is organization, the second one is prepare, the third is operate, and the fourth is evolve. So under organization, so this is not in the slide
Okay.
anyway. Found it on the AWS documentation. And so under organization, it talks about the fact that every person in the organization must know the goals of the organization, what they stand for, their customer, the market target, like the kind of customers they are looking out for, everything, all the principles under organization. Everyone must be well informed about what the organization stands for and what they do. Their culture, the spirit, whatsoever. Everyone must know this in the organization. I think even the cleaner deserves to know. Yeah. And then when everybody is well informed, there is the prepare. So prepare is what tools do we have? What tools do we use to achieve our purpose in scouting our market, in providing our solutions or products? What are the tools? And every person in the organization must be prepared with whatever tools, whatever discipline, whatever knowledge that they need in order to carry out their tasks. Then you go to operate. So operating is now you have the tools, you have the knowledge, you have the resources. How do you use them to operate? And you need to also, just as the topic says, operational excellence, you need to use them to operate in an excellent manner, So it has to be excellent. That's just it. And then the last one, evolve, is that now, from the last point, when you learn from all your failures, now you have to evolve to become better in your operations. Maybe some of the processes need to be changed and all that. You have to work on it. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dennis. That's a really excellent delivery. And thank you to group 3. So we know what operational excellence is now. What is the next one? Security. Okay, so I believe for security you would be able to go quicker because we've done security, like we had like one whole week of security. So John Harold. Is your group
I believe.
can take over.
Sure.
Edu has to mute his what's it called? He has to turn his volume down to the last one. Edu.
Hi. So I'll be taking the introduction of the security pillar for my group. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello, Jennifer.
So
And go ahead.
John, were you saying something?
Yeah, I was saying that you should go ahead.
Okay. Okay. So the security pillar basically has to do with protecting protecting your assets, so your resources, your data, whatever it is you have on the in the cloud. Security has to do with protecting it. So when you say something is secure, that means it's protected. It cannot be accessed without like proper without what's the word? Okay, anyway.
Authorization.
Yes, authorization. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
So Give me a second. So I like to explain things like in layman terms. So if you are having, if you decide to use AWS and you want to use it properly, you must be aware that there will be threats, there will be breaches, which you can prevent, but then you would have to find a way to monitor your systems. You find a way to, you have to have a solution for when your security is breached, or it's even when there's an attack, to how to counter that attack and all of those things, and make sure that your data is protected. And at the same time, your data has to be um protected. It has to be confidential also, and it must not have mistakes. So there are so many things that you need to put in place for that, and to monitor your resources. I think John will have to take the first
Yes.
point.
Yes, so I'll be taking the first point. All right. So for the first point, we have implement a strong identity foundation, and this means that for our system, we need to be able to to identify who has access to the system and what they have access to, and what exactly they can do with our system or with our resources that we have. And with AWS, we have the IAM, so that's Identity and Access Management Service. That allows us to actually create users. So we're able to decide who is going to be a user of our system. We have groups to also um, classify our users into groups. For the various groups that we have, we can assign them roles to be able to determine that, okay, so for this group of users, these are the roles that they perform, these are the resources that they have access to. um, and then we have policies, and when we treated IAM earlier, we also studied that the policies goes a long way to actually define the kind of permissions that our users and our groups or our roles can have. And when we go into further details, so you realize that for the various resources, we can decide who has access to the resources, what kind of access they have, whether they can only read, whether they can write, whether they can uh, make changes to the various resources that we have. Point of implementing a strong handle. So yes, we need to be able to when we have our cloud system. Um, Jennifer.
Okay, so the second point is to enable traceability. So you need to be able to monitor the activities in your environment, especially in real time, because you need to be able to deal with whatever issues may come up as soon as they do. So with AWS, you can use Amazon CloudTrail, sorry, and CloudWatch to monitor activities of like your different users and whatever goes on, maybe your um SD buckets, whatever you have over there. And you could use CloudWatch logs for further analysis too. To make sure that there's nothing unexpected going on in your environment. You can also set I think CloudWatch metric alarms. Yes, so that if you set setting like thresholds, if it exceeds, you know that okay, there's something going wrong here. Let me check that. Like there's a notification that okay, this has exceeded this, or there's something going on in with this particular service or in this particular part of your environment. so that you can handle that. I think one person should have this role or this responsibility so that it's easier to track and know that, okay, this person was in charge of this. What happened? What are we doing about it? Yeah.
All right. I'll take the third point. That is applying security at all layers. So I believe we all agree that for our system there are different layers and different components that the system. So the database, we have the servers, we have our applications, our operating systems, and all of that. They all come together to make up the whole system. Now, applying security, I mean, for all these various components, they all stand alone or they are all independent on their own as well. So we need to be able to apply security features or security models for all the various components that make up our system. So, for example, if we take our service, we need to be able to determine who has access to the service and how they even access the service. So, for example, when we're treating the EC2 instances, we needed to use the SSH command in the CLI to access the EC2 instance, and that is one way of permitting access to our service. When we treated database recently, we even learned that we have the various languages in database, and one of them was actually for how do you call it, like permitting or granting access to our database, so we can actually determine who has access to our database as well. And that's another way of making sure that our database is secure. And for applications, for our networks, we can apply security on those levels as well. We have firewalls, and then we also have other services in AWS like guard duty, and that could also help us to monitor and make sure that our system is secure. And anytime there are any malicious activities, it will give us an alert to let us know that something is actually going. For our system, we also need to be able to apply security on all the levels or all the components that make up our system. Emmanuel Cranton.
Okay, thank you. I'll take the fourth one. Automate security best practices. I guess you guys can hear me. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, we can hear you.
Okay, so with the automate security best practices, it help us elevate our ability to securely scale more rapidly and cost effectiveness. So let's let's dive deeper into that. With for the scalability and rapid development and deployment. Sorry, with this, it simply means security configuration and control can be applied consistently across numerous resource and environments without the manual effort or our traditional way of deploying things. And for the cost effectiveness, I would say automation helps in reducing operational costs associated with our manual configuration and monitoring of security control. So like mechanisms like hello?
Hi, Ma. So, with automating security best practices, an example we've looked at in class is the what's it called? the one that we use to create a user. So the script that we created when creating a user. Okay, so you should be able to automate those things in your environment that enable you meet your security goals. Okay, as much as possible. They should not be. You should reduce the amount of human interaction or amount of human effort that is put into those things. And another way is to set expiry on passwords. Okay, some companies have measures like that set. So after a while, you have to change your password. I think AWS too does. So when you're creating an IAM user, they'll ask if you want to use your own password or they should generate those things. So being able to have an automated version of those things makes it easier and more consistent when implementing them. And protecting data in transit and at rest. We've looked at encryption in this class before. Tokenization a typical example of tokenization is when you are trying to log in somewhere and then they send you a code or a token that you can use to access some resource, and then when you're done or when it expires, you no longer have that access. And access control too. So in your environments, those places where these things are relevant or these security measures can be applied, then you apply them there. As you mentioned, apply to multiple layers of security. So wherever you get a chance to apply a layer of security, you should take it. I noticed Emmanuel Odum likes there's like multiple layers of security. So when we were having the conversation about you being able to see the
Hello?
items, can't say. I can't
Yeah.
say. So you
Hello,
went
Uncle
off.
Fia.
Yeah, you went off for a while. So I decided to continue because it's almost 4 p.m.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you were going to do automate security best practices, and then which one?
The next one.
Okay, so the next one we know about
That is
encryption and access control too. We know about that. So
yes, but that was what I was.
okay, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And keep people away from data. So still on the matter of reducing the human intervention or reducing the human access to data, okay, because chances are that human beings are fallible. So somebody could make a mistake or something like that. And in handling your sensitive data, you could lose it. Like with the example that Ellie gave us last week about a company that deleted their Google account or something. I won't be surprised if the deletion was initiated by a human being. So the chances are that with computers or with machines, you would have less or even no errors because the more computers are just there. So you need to program them to do whatever. So as much as possible, reduce the human interactions with your data to reduce the risk of mishandling, modification, and human error when handling sensitive data, and prepare for security events. This is also similar to what we saw earlier under operational excellence about anticipating a failure. Okay, so prepare for security events by managing and investigating policies and processes. You run simulations, and then through the simulations, you'll be able to recognize those gaps that you have in your setup, and you'll then be able to close those gaps or do something about it. Okay, then if this happens, then okay, how we respond is this way. Okay. So that's it. So we've done operational excellence, and security. So tomorrow morning we'll try to cover the other four, and then we move on from there. Please, are there any questions before we end the session?
I think when we're taking the last point about the security event, you skipped some of the tools that we used to like automate. What do you call it?
Okay, so tell us.
I wanted to understand maybe in AWS what some of those tools could be.
Guys, which detection tool did we look at in week? Security was week 3. So in week 3, which detection tool did we look at?
We looked at guard duty.
Thank you. And okay, so investigation, CloudTrail, looking at your CloudTrail logs could help with investigation, but there's also a tool called Amazon Inspector that you can use, for investigation.
Akusha, what about the security hub for investigation?
Yes, you could use that too.
Yeah. And the last thing will be the recovery.
And with recovery, yes, who can help us? Recovering from okay.
Recovery, I think it would depend. If it's database, then RDS has auto backups that you can still recover and install and have your data back. S3 also has that. So it depends on which service or use case.
Excellent answer, Dennis.
And I think cloud backup, I think it's an S3. Is that what he was talking about?
Well, there's also AWS backup, but RDS has these automated backups that they do on your behalf. So you would be able, if an attack should happen to your primary or your main database instance, you'd always be able to recover from that without any data loss.
What about, I'm seeing something online here as AWS Elastic Disaster Recovery, DRS.
AWS Elastic Disaster Recovery.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, let me look at when to choose DRS. Okay, how does it do this? So you set it up and you configure it. Oh, okay. So it also deals with data replication. So whatever resource that you have, it's replicating your data to. So for example, if you have EC2, it will be replicating your data to an EBS volume, which is like your hard disk. Okay. So as soon as your EC2 goes down, you would be able to use that snapshot that's taken to spin up another instance. So it's not now that I come to do all your all your installations and setup again. When you use that snapshots, I think in this class, the first week we looked at AMIs, how you can use AMIs to spin up a new instance, but you want the instance to look or to have some features of somebody else's instance. So you can snapshot that person's instance. So this is like the similar idea. It will be replicating whatever data is on your instance for you. AWS EDR would be replicating whatever data is on your instance for you, so that at any point when you lose that instance, you would be able to recover from that. But if you should lose your instance, ideally your your EBS volume, if it hasn't been attacked, you should be able to unattach it from the faulty instance and reattach it to your new one. So as I mentioned, there are many ways to kill a cat. So this is just one of them. Okay, are we okay now? Terry.
Yes, please. What of you those that are down with the code signal test?
You are done with your code signal. Oh, well, if the test was okay for you, then that's it. Because one idea is gone. I actually didn't know. So Francis was under